And thank you very much, Mr. Jaffrey. And I also need to thank Ms. Kazmi for all the work she's done to get me here. So, assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be. I'm very excited to be here sharing with you about how do you change your direction in life. I do a lot of leadership stuff, and you know, when you think there's a lot we can talk about, but when the webinar comes through the amazing Madinah Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship, you might expect leadership in one form or another, or the topic of entrepreneurship. But so what has your direction in life really got to do with this, you might ask? Now, for me, life and business are integrated. And when the realization that we are all leaders hits us, we can clearly see that leadership is life. See, according to my mentor, John Maxwell, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, which I fully agree with. And that is influence with people, not over them. Now, I'm just trying to, okay, technical difficulty. As you see on the slide here as well, before we can lead others, you know, we cannot lead others until we can lead ourselves. Therefore, it is of the utmost importance to know who we are, what we do, and where we are going. And that is why this time I chose this subject for you, to know where you are going, and if you're going in the wrong direction, that you can and must change. And that often takes courage, determination, and perseverance, and a lot of other things alongside it, of course. But when I will quote firstly, I will quote the first step as it shown on your introduction, and it talks about assessing your life. Self-development is the key. In order to change or improve your circumstances, you first have to look at where you currently are in life. What means assessing? That means assessing that you have achieved, and more importantly, that where you're currently, your path is taking you. Then decide if it is not working for you, where you are yourself. Creating a clear vision for your own life allows you to then focus on developing your skills to take you to the next level and beyond. So these are the short steps which were actually on that slide. I didn't realize this, but when I look back at my own life and where I am right now, this is exactly what I have done. And I mean, while I was putting this webinar together, it actually came to me, and I thought, you know, so I would be wrong not to even share some of my personal story with you right here before we go any further. And as a little kid, I mean, from about 5 to 11 years old, I was bullied. And the reason for that was that I was about as wide as I was tall. Let's just say I should have been twice as tall for my weight. But at age 12, I grew to 1.90 m, and for those listening in imperial measures, it's 6'4" which I am right now. I never grew anymore, luckily. But the bullying stopped. But I continued to bully myself for years afterwards, because many things in life leave scars, and not just on the outside, but so often on the inside. And that's where a lot of us are struggling in life, and we don't know what goes on behind people's facades. And you know, I actually became the class clown. I looked happy, but I was hurting on the inside. But what happened then is, at 17, I got my first personal development book, which started a new journey for growth. And that is still ongoing, because where I am right now is not where I want to be. But I say I've developed immensely over quite a few years, because I'm a little bit older than many. But of course, there is always room for improvement. They always say the biggest room for the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. And you know, between 12 and 17, what happened there is that I actually started to bully myself, because when you get these scars on the inside, and sometimes on the outside too, because when they're visible, you can actually see them as well. But when you've got them in the scars in your mind, you know, you really need to start thinking about development. And I started bullying myself, because even though I grew to 1.90 m, I still saw this heavy, short kid. But I started my illustrious career in the oil industry at the age of 18, so a year after I got my first book, after leaving high school. And that is where I developed for the next 33 years. See, I already told you I'm a little bit older. I never disliked my job, but knew for a long time that it was meant to do something else. And you know, that makes it a little bit more difficult because, you know, I make excuses and because I actually loved what I did up to a point. But I got some promotions, but when I seriously looked at where I was going, it did not really matter. And it was not where I wanted to go. And that's when my comfort zone gradually became my uncomfort zone. And something happened in June 2013, which I elaborate about a little bit later, that changed my entire life. And of course, my direction. And you know, sometimes things happen when you least expect it, good and bad. But when you know that you know it's time, the decision is easy. And that's how it was for me. And I quit my job. Now, when I went in, I still remember the day I walked into my boss's office, the operations manager and director, and I basically fired my boss. And it wasn't something that I was going to try something different. I was going to change completely. My direction changed completely. Something lit up on me, and I didn't. That's why I said I'm not just burning my bridges and going to try. I'm going to blow those bridges sky high because I will never come back. And I think trying always leaves the back door of failure wide open for many of us. So we do or we don't, and that's where I came from. So, well, one thing that happened was I did not have a solid strategy, a solid plan of what to do, which is not always recommended. But for me, it was, if not now, then when? You know, when we talk about changing direction, when we're talking about upping our goals, upping our levels, enlarging our visions, doing all these kind of things, when will we ever do them? See, we wait for all kinds of things for a variety of reasons. You know, whether it's, oh, I need to stay in this job because the children have to go to college, I've got a mortgage to pay. You know, you can think of all these reasons we all have, and they seem all genuine to us, of course. And that's why the wealthiest place on earth is not the business quarters of big cities, the oil fields in the Middle East, nor the gold mines in South Africa, but it's the graveyards. Because when you think about it, that's where wonderful songs were never written, stunning books were never sung, stunning books were never written, exciting businesses never built, inventions never invented, and exquisite meals never prepared. Because it's all maybe someday. I read a poem once, and that reminds me as well. It's called Someday I'll, and that talks about this whole idea that someday we will, or someday I will do. And you know we have today. We never know whether we have tomorrow. So if we're ever going to change, today is the day. But with many years of self-development, some years of training, and then practicing as a coach, becoming a member of the John Maxwell team, as Mr. Jaffrey so eloquently said already, in 2012, as a coach, trainer, and speaker, becoming a student of none other than the amazing Les Brown, I knew it would involve people. See, I never had a strategy, but I always knew, because I always loved people. Passion has always been people have always been my passion too. Because, you know, impacting and making a difference in people's lives around the world, you know, there is no price tag that can be put on it. But I met my partner, Artie Moore, also in the Key Leadership Institute. I met her in International Maxwell Certification in Orlando in 2014, and we started talking about different things. And I also set my intentions of finding somebody in Africa I could partner or collaborate with. And we started to talk about starting a leadership institute in South Africa, which is what we did, of course. So where am I going now? I am where I am right now because I made some great choices. And some people sometimes ask me, how did you make them? I said, after making enough bad choices. And you know, sometimes we win and sometimes we learn. Sometimes we should learn at least. But I am continuing my development through books because I think sometimes, you know, we should have mentors, and we want to have mentors close to us. But when we read books of people who do things or who have done what we're trying to do, and who have a lot of experience in these books can become mentors all by themselves. Then, of course, seminars, associating with like-minded people, and of course with webinars like this. I also put into practice what I'm learning in many different areas, such as speaking, training, coaching, workshops, performance management, youth development, and I am loving what I do. As I said already, to impact lives and make even a tiny difference for me is a real and true blessing. So, why my story? Well, I hope this makes it clearer that self-development is hugely important, regardless of your direction. You know, I assessed, as we look back here on the list that I've still got in front of you, I assessed where I was in life and where I came from, what I had achieved in my life so far, where I was going, and last but not least, if it was the right path for me. And as I knew, if it is where I wanted to go, and it was not, of course. So I radically changed my direction to now live my dream and cherish my journey. So when we come to step 2 in the pieces that were written in the invitation, is that it says is to set your intentions. Now that you have a vision and know what skills you need to add to your growth, what are you going to do intentionally every day to achieve this? Do you actually have a plan for growth? Reading strategic books, attending specific seminars, connecting with the right mentors and/or coaches, and successful people in all walks of life. Have at least one, a coach or mentor. Listening to the wisdom of thought leaders, and for sustainability, as we all attend seminars with very little follow-up or to build on what we learned. I use, and for me that was a very impactful, again I'll talk about it later on, the highly impactful and sustainable 45 weeks values-based leadership process. And you know, for me, it's been another part of my life-changing story in 2013. But these are all keys to your continued success. So once you have established where you're going, and this is as much for people going in the right direction as for those now feeling the need to change direction. You know, I need to talk a little bit about vision and culture and their differences, as these are clearly not one and the same, and so often misunderstood. Now, to put it simply, vision is where you're going, while culture is what you are doing. And we always talk about our vision, you know, where we are going and what we're going to do to get there, and the vision is very important. But then there is another thing there that is, and it's maybe a bold statement, but culture will eat vision for lunch every single day. And because when you think about it, if what you're doing is not right or not enough, you will never achieve your bigger vision. And that is why we need to talk about your intentions. I am sure we all have good intentions, and some of us have great intentions. But what do we actually do with those intentions? You know, as we all know, the roads are paved with good intentions. You know, how many, we can include that someday I'll again, but how many times do we want to do things and leave them undone? You know, John Maxwell, again, a mentor of mine, he's got a quote which I'm going to quote for you as I remember it well, and it speaks to me. It's people who have good intentions do something good occasionally. People who live intentionally do something good continually. Now, and I mean, living intentionally is a whole webinar all by itself, but I mean, I will address this as we go through a bit, because this intention, having the right intentions is important, but living intentionally is even more important. And to become a person who lives an intentional life takes discipline, perseverance, and continuous action in the right direction. And as I said, you know, I never hated what I did, but I felt I was not going in the right direction, which I am now. So, you know, as long as you don't hate what you're doing, and you actually have a passion for what you're doing, to move in the right direction intentionally and continually is a lot easier. So we need to take action, massive action, and in the direction we now know to be the right one. And, you know, how do you become a person of influence? And there are 5 things you need to do to become a person of action. And number 1, identify and overcoming fear, or your fears even. What is stopping you from taking action? And once you have identified your fear, you have to start taking action and prepare to make quick decisions. There's a few things here, and that's why I put them both together, because when fear is the biggest single lid on taking action right now. And to prepare to make quick decisions, I have kept that with action taking, because you can often take action without giving a single thought to what you're doing. Then taking action might lead to disaster. So when you realize that the world is changed by a single action, is it not better to be prepared to make the right decision, or at least an informed one? I mean, they say it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And, because I was not, I personally have had to let some opportunities slip in the past simply because I was not prepared when they came knocking. And that includes fear of not being good enough or not being prepared enough. Have you ever climbed a ladder not only to find it was leaning against the wrong building, and this raises more questions as I search deep within myself, but what was I doing with my life? Was I doing something I really loved? Was I doing something that would make a difference? At the time when I discovered what really mattered to me, it was never money, but people. I wanted to work with people and support them to improve their lives, their businesses, and their futures. My passion was, and is now more than ever, helping and serving others. But when I was ever going to start? Tomorrow, and that's where the take action comes in, of course. And that kind of brought me back to reality as I sat contemplating about my excuses. I wish I could procrastinate, but I'll have to leave that for another day. But because I realized that I should not postpone anything until tomorrow. Life is there to be lived, so we really must do all we can today. And there is actually a story attached to that, and I have done this in a speech where actually a dear friend of mine died at the young age of 22, and that again, we always think that we have tomorrows, but we have to do this today. And I don't know what it'll take for you to move your life forward and to take that action, to follow your passion, your dream. Will it take something as dramatic as a death or a loss of employment, an illness? When will you decide to put your dream to the test? Tomorrow? How sure are you that you'll even have tomorrow? As I said, I'm sure that young friend I talked about earlier, just now, who died at 22, I'm sure he thought he had it tomorrow. But, and from there, we go, so, it became to me very clear, actually, as I thinking back to that event, and I remember it. It's now 17 years ago, but I remember it as if it was yesterday. And that taking action was good. But then something else comes looking. Have a growth plan. Growth's highest reward is not what you get from it; it is what you become through it. And I'll talk a little bit more about the growth plan in a few minutes as well. And then we come to the next part. Become an early riser. Most successful people who are action takers rise early. Even to the gym before the masses. Just that point alone, that it's a time saver, but they start doing stuff, making the to-do list, whatever. But think about it. When you wake up just 30 minutes earlier, and I'm not talking about the ones who already wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but if you generally wake up 30 minutes a day earlier, you'll have an extra 7.5 hours a week. Now that's a whole day for ordinary people anyway. And I've been lenient to you. I've given you the weekend off. But do the maths. That's more than 50 days per year extra that you will have. What can you do with 50 extra days a year? It's the small steps that make a difference. Sometimes people say, okay, how many people, and living here in Africa, and say how many people get killed by elephants, and I think the quote, the number a couple of years ago was 12 in the year. He said, how many people get killed by mosquitoes? Thousands. It's the small things that make a difference. And then we go to number 5. Capitalize your strength and get a list of 5. Now that list of 5 is important because, yes, unless we're really bad at something that is detrimental to our well-being, to our growth, to our communication, to our connectivity. We need to get those sorted, of course. And it doesn't do any harm to actually, keep an eye on your weaknesses as well. And I call them opportunities for improvement. But when you have strengths, utilize them. Get the best out of them. Do you know your strengths even? What are your strengths? So I say get a list of 5, but I would get 2 lists of 5. The first list of 5 would be to write down your 5 biggest strengths you've got and how you can utilize them. And then my second list is that will be a list of things you must do every single day. Become intentional, I said, every single day. So that means that could be, for example, reading, writing, adding value to others, connect with quality people, prioritize. Now these 5 things, of course, they should be doable at every single point. I mean, if you set these 5 daily, because they're daily things, it's not a goal setting to see how far you can stretch yourself. I think if you have 5 things you need to do every day, it'll probably stretch you enough. That they're important enough that you must do them every day, so they should always be on that list. And I heard John Maxwell. He's had a to-do list, a list of 5 for many years, and that's how he's written so many books, because he files, he writes, he listens, and he does all kinds of stuff. But there was a quote from him, and I have because of the importance of action. And John says, whoever acts more during the day becomes more, does more, has more, and can help more. Now, I think that's very important. So, and it's self-explanatory, of course. And then you come to another famous quote by Martin Luther King, of course, and everybody knows this. I have a dream. It's from a speech. But as I wrote there, even when you have a dream, it is absolutely worthless if you don't do anything about it. And in fact, if the dream is so big, but you don't do anything about it, it can very well become your nightmare. So here as well, I had something that spoke to me as well, and it's a bit of a story that came, but it came with a quote as well. All you can do is all you can do, and all you can do is enough. But are you doing all you can do? And that's a quote I heard Les Brown saying a lot, and it actually doesn't originally come from him. But when we look around us, and in the animal kingdom, it is often a case of do or die. The survival of the fittest. And there is action taken is all they can do, because if they don't, the weaker ones die, and the ones that don't take action get eaten by the ones that do. So even eagles don't just wake up one morning and soar. We can at least choose, but we can at least choose what we become. See the difference between us and animals, and I'm going to talk a little bit about these comparisons between animals and us. But I mean, we stand aside from animals because we have the power to choose our own attitude. Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, talks about it very effectively and very meaningful. Man's Search for Meaning, yeah. But the eagle it's a magnificent bird, and when you think about the eagle, soaring majestically high up in the sky, it's an emblem of the United States, where they say it's the country of hope, the land of the brave, and a continent of the free. But for most people walking around in quiet desperation, shackled to their past, shackled to the opinions of others, and shackled to their own negative beliefs. And they think that's all there is in life. And I know we have a variety of people on this call today, but for everybody, they need to realize that even those magnificent eagles needed a push. There's a book about that as well. But when you talk about the eagle, when these eagles are high up in the mountains, they're against a rock face, and they've got the young ones. And what mother eagle eventually does, she nudges their young ones towards the edge of the nest. And then when she thinks is ready, she pushes them. Now, when I read that actually in the book, and I think it's called Even Eagles Need a Push, I had to read that twice. She pushed him out of the nest. Now, think about if we did that to our children, that when we think about it, you know, it's time to leave, and we're going to make it uncomfortable. But what happened was you know, I was thinking, what if she was wrong and she pushed them out? I mean, they would surely die, you know. But if we look at our families, when we could remove the mattress, the Xbox, and the internet from the children to make it uncomfortable, because what the mother eagle also did is she started taking everything out of the nest, the feathers, the coverage, so eventually they were sitting on hardwood. So, but why don't we do this for ourselves? Because, you know, we could make things uncomfortable for our children, our staff, and all that, so we can make them stretch, we make them grow. But when we convince ourselves that we've worked hard and that we do the best we can and we deserve our comforts, and here we go straight back into that comfort zone. And what happens to a lot of people, they won't change direction, even though they would like to, because they surround themselves with people who allow them to quit. And that's where I mentioned earlier on, do or don't, but don't try, because they're the ones, you know, even simple things like trying to lose weight or stopping smoking, and you go back, and these friends who are actually still smoking, they're glad you come back, because otherwise they could do it as well, of course, and they pat you on the shoulders, and you know, at least you tried. Now, you know, it's not good enough, but what happens is that the thrill of soaring, we're all eagles because we're all unique, we're all individuals, but the thrill of soaring begins with the fear of falling. And without the strings in their wings, these eagles will never be what they were meant to be. You know, the quote that if you surround yourself by pigeons, you never become an eagle. And you know, there is plenty stories like that going about. But what I'm saying is, don't wait until you get pushed. Although it might well be the next best gift to you can get. You know, some people say, you're like, I quit my job, but I know people who got fired. And looking back a couple of years, of course, it was horrendous at the time, from any position in life. But when I talked to them a couple of years later, looking back, it was the best thing they can do, because eventually they embraced their change. You know, they say, and for eagles, it's a great thing, jump and build your wings on the way down. And I know that when you do that, you will soar like an eagle. But will you jump? This is the biggest question. So when we actually go a bit further, there's in point 3, hold on, I'll just go. The third step. Now, when you're already successful, you see, there's plenty of people who have some kind of success. And when you actually are heading in the right direction or changing direction, but you're already successful, you might ask, why would I need a plan for growth? Because now we're coming back to the plan of growth I mentioned earlier on. And I borrowed this from my friend and mentor, Mark Cole, who I've mentioned here. And he says, when you are already successful, you need a plan for growth for consistency. And then when we look at a plan for growth, and this is, you know, sometimes we need a push, but when we look at it, set aside time for growth. And that's very important, whether it's early in the morning, I say, get up, maybe it means getting up an extra 30 minutes early of the day. But maybe late evening, and what it'll take, reflection, planning, whatever it is reading, whatever it is, because then you need to determine the areas of growth. You know, is it personal? Is it business? Is it spiritual? Is it all of the above, family? And maybe even some of the weaknesses that you need to develop into strengths because you need them. It's maybe some of the things you can't hire others to do, you might need to do yourself. And most people who are starting off need to do all of them themselves probably. So then you go back to the next stage, find resources in your area of growth. You know, and that could be books, seminars, webinars. And I know the Madinah Institute of Leadership and Entrepreneurship has got an enormous amount of such valuable webinars on their page. I was just stunned when I looked at it. So it's there is a lot in quite a few different areas you can listen to. Surround yourself with good people. There is, you know, what resources do you need? And, you know, we are with modern technology, we're only a click away from the resources we need. And if we don't know, we certainly know people who can help us out. Then the fourth thing, apply what you learn daily. You know, growth without activation becomes stagnation. It's again a quote from Mark Cole, but basically, you know, if we keep growing, if we keep learning and growing in our mind, but we don't do anything about it, you know, there's another part is become a river, not a reservoir, and that's where the stagnation comes in, of course, because when we grow, we need to put it into action daily, and then not only put it into action, but when we get to know stuff, surely we should pass this on to others to help them to become better too. Because real leaders will lift others up, and they go down to lift others up. They won't stand on them, they lift others up. But sometimes we need to ask ourselves, what do we lift ourselves up to? Or what do we lift our people up to? See, we need to keep growing daily, in whatever direction we're going into. Now then we go to the third step, and that is to embark on an ongoing journey. And you will never arrive at your destination if your vision keeps expanding. This means that you have to continually push your own boundaries. This means also never be complacent. And more importantly, choose you. Stretch yourself in your own growth, as no one else will do that. They might stretch you a bit and make you uncomfortable. So won't you do it for yourself and choose which way you grow? And don't just read books, implement the ideas that stand out, even if you do not feel comfortable. You know, get out your comfort zone and change some of your habits. Your safe place is what holds you back. Change your habits and be completely intentional in doing so. I also put in there, learn how to coach, because I want to approach that subject just for 2 minutes as well. And as I said, be intentional about all of the above. Now, there is many things you can do to bring about that change in life or acceleration towards your goals. Becoming a person of action with an actual and real plan for growth, I've already talked about, and I hope you can all see that this is a basic necessity. There are more things I will highly recommend to bring about that change and develop yourself as a person and as a leader. Becoming intentional on a daily basis will do wonders for you. When you wake up every morning with your intentions set for the day, or set your intentions that very morning, not just to do things for your personal success, but to also get a real feeling of significance, then you follow through on those intentions, I can assure you that your life will change a lot. I mean, I mentioned it earlier on, but here is the quote again, because I think it's appropriate to mention it once again, because it's so appropriate. People who live with good intentions do something good occasionally. People who live intentionally do something good continually. And, you know, when we sometimes think that we don't actually do a lot, that we actually are very intentional. A very quick story about monkeys and bananas, and it shows people how we do a lot of stuff automatically. Basically, they put 4 monkeys in a room, and on a platform high above, they put a bunch of bananas. The first monkey went up to the top, tried to grab the bananas. Just before he got there, he got doused with freezing cold water. So he ran down again. The second one went up. The same happened to him. The third one tried to go up, and the first 2 already tried to pull him back. I say, you know, don't do this. You're going to get freezing cold water on you. The same happened with the fourth. But the importance there is, what then happened is none of them would go up again. So then they started changing out 1 monkey at a time. Now, when the next monkey came, they wanted to go and get his bananas, of course, and the other 3 pulled them back. So now what really happened is, by the time all 4 monkeys had been replaced, there was 4 new monkeys there, and they pulled each other back, and they didn't even know why they wouldn't go and get these bananas. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because it's 90% of what we do is on autopilot without even know why we're doing it. And of course, don't get me wrong, some things are very necessary on autopilot, like breathing and a lot of functions of our body. But we do a lot on autopilot. That's why I'm talking about living intentionally and do stuff intentionally. So when you start to do things for others intentionally as well, you will not only become successful, but you will start to lead a life of significance. A life that will not just build your own bank account, but it will fill your soul. And I can guarantee you, once you have felt that feeling of significance, success will never be enough. Now, remember I mentioned near the beginning that experience that completely changed my life in 2013. And I want to just touch on this very briefly, because that life-changing event, that was the honor of and privilege of being part of a team to support the start of transformation in the beautiful country of Guatemala, where we trained 19,000 leaders from all walks of life in a week. It was complete mayhem, but I felt I didn't just see it in those people's eyes, but I experienced it. I felt it deep within me, and it left such an impact on me that on the way home I decided to quit my job, and that's where I quit my job from. And I've since been part of the similar trip to Paraguay, at the beginning of last year, where we trained 17,000 leaders. And in that process, that's where I also experienced for the first time this roundtable values-based leadership process. And it left such an impact on me that, for me, there was no other option to quit my job. And it's the best thing I ever did, as I said afterwards. But another thing that will change the way you think, do business, and deal with people is by learning how to coach. Now, why coaching? You might think that is a bit strange, and that can also be a subject of a completely other webinar, but to bring creativity back into your life and that of your employees, your peers, even your own family members, will take a totally different, but definitely not difficult approach. If you want people to really start thinking again, you better start asking better questions. Better questions, you may ask why. And what are better questions? Well, rather than tell everyone what they can do and cannot do, ask them to become creative, to really start to think again by asking open-ended questions. Those beginning with who, what, where, when, why, and how. And when you do that, then it's time to really listen to their answers. So you can ask even more and better questions. You will see change happening in a very short period of time. Even ask those kind of questions of yourself, because it takes more clarity. It creates more clarity, communication, and collaboration as well. Here's a bold statement about coaching, which is in a simplified version, really listening intently and asking better questions. John Maxwell wrote a book. It's called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. Now, when you think about it, how can people ask good questions? By listening better, by listening more intently, by being present when people are talking. And sometimes you actually start hearing what's not being said. But here is a statement. You will go from a good leader to a great leader when you learn how to coach. And this is how I'm effectively training executive teams in different countries to become more influential in their leadership roles through my transformational coaching workshops. Going back to the beginning, where I talked about life, business, and leadership being completely integrated. This will have a tremendous impact on you as a person. To become a powerful leader of influence in your organization, the biggest key to your own personal growth is really simple. It is the day you make a decision to choose your own path and direction. Simply put, it's the day you choose you. And I think it's also very important that, when you do that, to really think about the words you use. My partner, Arthi, always says when she hears somebody saying, oh, that was nice. It's a simple example, but I love it because she says, you've had an education and there's a dictionary attached to that education. Nice is the grass growing. Nice is a cup of tea. But other things that is exquisite, tremendous, beautiful, wonderful, amazing. When you start just changing that one word in your vocabulary, you'll see change. And people will notice it because many people just use nice as an adjective. And it says actually words actually become thoughts. Thoughts become actions. Actions become habits, and habits become your reality. So what do you want your reality to be? And if you can start asking and inviting people to become part of something by asking open-ended questions, people feel wanted again, and feel needed, and feel respected as human beings. Now, are you going in the right direction? Well, I can't answer that for you. Maybe by looking deeper inside yourself, you discover that once you find your why, you have to change direction. And that is really the time to change you. Now, the best 2 days in your life are the day you were born and the day you discover why. So, whether you're changing or moving forward, I certainly hope, my time is up just now, I certainly hope that I've given you some insights, tools, ideas to help you along your journey confidently. And I want to thank the Madinah Institute of Leadership and Entrepreneurship and all you listeners for giving me the privilege and sharing with you today. I've actually put the slides here together, and a few things what the Madinah does so well. I took the first paragraph because it really explained exactly to me what is so wonderful about the Madinah Institute. And also we now have a question and answer session, which Mr. Jaffrey will conduct, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much indeed for Mr. John Roberts for a very, very intriguing presentation. And folks, we are now open for question and answers. So if you have any questions, you could either insert it in the question box, chat box, or you could equally raise your hand. There's a hand icon available on the console, so please click on it if you want to speak directly with Mr. Roberts. So let me go straight. There are a couple of questions already posted. Being the first one, Mr. Robert, what was the biggest decision you made in changing directions?
A great question, Mr. Jaffrey. And of course, when I talk about it, I sure have made a few great decisions. And I think that biggest decision was actually although it was easy in the end, but I think, when I look back, I thought, I have waited for 30 years, but that was not true. I prepared for 30 years. So when that question came and I changed complete direction, and especially because I hadn't made a proper strategy for doing it, but it was, I still call it a gut feeling, but for me, that biggest decision I made is the one where I actually quit my job. And I decided that in 2013, coming back from Guatemala, but in May 2014, I went into my boss's office because I had some contractual agreements. And that's when I told them, "You're fired." I walked away, and, it was an amazing, and to me, the right decision.
Okay, thank you very much. And another one, Mr. Roberts, in your view, what is the major reason people normally don't stick or remain committed to their decisions after making one?
Oh, that is a huge subject, I suppose. But when they make decisions, and I think the easiest place to see this is actually in New Year's resolutions. As we all know them, they don't last. I mean, when you go to the gym, January and February are packed, and by March we're back to, we can get our own push bikes and weights back. But I think that there is a lot of reasons, and some of them are insecurity, uncertainty, not exactly knowing if the decision was right. Because for me, when you make a major decision, and for me, of course, this decision was huge. I was comfortable in the oil industry, pipeline inspection, rig building, and mostly specialized pipeline inspection. So my job was secure for a long time to come. I was one of the very few experts in that field. But when most people don't stick with those decisions because they haven't got the conviction of those decisions, they haven't got the belief in themselves. And sometimes I think people need to believe in others, believe in them until they start believing in themselves. So I'm talking about even borrowed belief. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen often enough either, because we don't encourage each other enough. We'll tell each other what we do wrong. And when things go right, if you become really successful, then they say, "Oh, I was happy for you. I always knew you would do it." But until it happens, it's very difficult. So commitments, all of a sudden, some failures, and failing forward is something that we all need to know. I think that as children, I wish we would teach our children, and as children, we would have been taught that failing is not final. We need to fail, because everybody who's on the line today, who's successful, can probably tell you and write a book full of stories that they've been unsuccessful and failed, but they learn from them. Sometimes we win, sometimes we learn. So once we learn from them, it's okay, but most people are not willing. They go down once. Les Brown always says, when you fall down, make sure you fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. And most people fall face down, and they lie in a puddle and they think they're going to drown. Now, you drown in 2 inches of water if you don't get out. But so it's a huge subject, and there is such a variety of things. But I think people should start asking themselves some really open-ended, deep questions. Why did I not? Or before they even start, is this the right decision for me? Who can I help? Who can help me? Who can I support? Who can I add value to so they can also add value to me? So there's a lot of things we need to ask ourselves when we start making these all-important decisions. It's not just a New Year's resolution because you can do it again next year, which is also a surprise to me. Why do you have to wait till the 1st of January to do these kind of things? But serious decisions, I think we can actually make a more, when you make decisions, make more educated decisions. I mean, we've got Google to us. We've got people abound who can tell us and help us in what to do. And, perseverance, dedication, make sure we have a stickability to those decisions. Don't get down and complain the first time. Just make sure you learn from it and just brush yourself up and get back up again. So yeah, it's a huge subject, but I hope I covered a little bit of it.
Indeed, quite an elaborative answer. Thank you very much. Another one from Brother Moiz Ali. What exactly do you mean by people who live intentionally? Yes,
great question, and thank you for asking. Now, it's in the quote, but I'll explain it a little bit more. When you see, we all have good intentions, and how often do we follow through on our good intentions? But living intentionally, that means that we, and I talk about living intentionally, and that is a daily thing. So if we can every day make sure, be intentional about what we're going to do that day. Who are we going to make a difference to? Who are we going to add value to as leaders, as CEOs, as business owners, even as entrepreneurs, and as just a family member? What can we do today to make the world a better place? And it doesn't, and we're not talking about, being a Gandhi or a Martin Luther King or huge people. If we do small things, but do them every day intentionally. So living intentionally is just making sure that every day you make decisions and start following through on them. And that's the simplest way I can say it. I hope that answers the question.
Indeed, thank you very much. Another one from Brother Yasin Al-Tahir. The question is, how can I find my motivation to change? That's a general one.
Yes. That's going to be another. That's a long, a great question indeed, because I think so many people are struggling with, and I think that's why life becomes mundane. That's why life is see, it is not the amount of years we've got in our life. It's a life we've got in our years is important. And I know it's another quote, but the reason for most people that doesn't happen, and many look back on their deathbed and they wish they had. I wonder why. And it's never spending more time at the office unless you do something in the office that you're passionate about. So the motivation is you need to actually start finding your why. I would even recommend a book by Simon Sinek, Find Your Why. He's actually got a follow-up now recently. But Find Your Why is great, because unless we really find out why, the how and the what don't matter. He talks about this. It's one of the most watched YouTube videos ever, I think, about Find Your Why as well. But he already talks about it. But I think it's very important that we start looking inside ourselves, and that's where these open-ended questions should come to us. We should have a serious conversation with ourselves, because motivation because they call us motivational speakers as well. But I think in a way it's wrong. It should be inspirational speaker, because we cannot motivate other people, and that's why it's a great question. We can inspire other people to motivate themselves if we can ignite a spark in them. Because you need to find that spark. How can you find that? You need to find out what you're passionate about, what you would do for free. How can you actually make an impact. What do you want? Do you want to make an impact in other people? Do you want to invent something? What are you passionate about, and what is stopping you? See, I think once you know your why, and once you know your why, the how and the what, the how will be next, and the what will be after. But once you know your why, the rest is material. You will get up that 30 minutes earlier I'm talking about, and probably fuck more. You will jump out of your bed. And if you ask, how can I find that? You can't find it outside of yourself. You need to find it within yourself. What is my passion? What would I love to do for free? Even if nobody paid me, what would I still do it? Don't get me wrong, you shouldn't do everything for free, but are you passionate about something that you can actually put a scenario together where if I failed in a certain direction, would I brush myself up and go and get up again? Because the years I have had since I quit my job, it's not always been roses and positiveness, but I've learned a lot. It's been frustrating, very frustrating at times, but I never wavered from the thought that this is the right path, because I knew, and I said, when you know, that decision is not that difficult anymore. And I don't mean that anybody should go and quit their job right now, because you could actually, it might quite actually be in the place you work, the company you work with, or the company you own even, or as an entrepreneur, what you do right now. If you find something that needs a solution, find a solution and go and do it. There's an entrepreneur. But preferably find something that speaks to your soul, that speaks to you from within, that you get great ideas, and then have a goal that's so big that it scares you half to death. And because your passion, your perseverance, your persistence will pay off handsomely. But you need to find it from within.
All right. Thank you very much. There's one from Norika Tekioka. The question is, could we see the Find Your Why slide again? I think that's just a request.
Pardon?
Question is, could we see the Find Your Why slide again?
I'll just go in this one here. Yes, there you are. That's an easy one.
Yeah. But that equally brings us towards the end of the webinar. So any quick concluding remarks that you'd like to give before we dismiss out also, Mr. Roberts?
No, as I said, I am so grateful for having had the opportunity, and when you contacted me, and then again, for yourself, having taken all the efforts of guiding this process. And it made me feel comfortable in bringing this webinar and presenting this webinar, and it's an honor and privilege to actually present on behalf of the Madinah Madinah Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship. And I would be wrong if I would not be doing things right if I didn't thank Ms. Rovaida Kazmi for all the work she's put in as well. It's been a pleasure and a privilege, and I hope people got something out of it. And when I go to the end, that I genuinely want to thank everybody for the participation, and I hope that people got something out of it, and I'm glad that I could bring something to the table. And if anybody has any questions, they can always contact me. I'm always open to add value to people and do whatever I can to support people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts, for a very, very interesting presentation. And I really want to thank you on behalf of the Madinah Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship for taking the time to deliver this live webinar, which indeed turned out to be quite interactive. So once again, thank you very much.
And thank you too, and thank you everybody for participating.
Thank you. Indeed. Thank you all of you who participated in this webinar. We are recording it, so please stay tuned to webinar.mile.org to learn about our upcoming programs and equally to access the recorded versions. With that note, I would like to end and conclude. So you all have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling from. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.